Okay, so we haven't covered this guy for a long time because the last time we quote-unquote covered him, he was actually on the show and I was making amends with him. I'm speaking, of course, about Remnant777. Now, it's been a while since my manic episode last year, wherein the secrets of the universe were revealed to me in a shocking, awing manner, and I felt fit to make up with Remnant and try to break bread with him peacefully. Since then, he has basically been, you know, shitting on my friend Yara and making videos like how leftist empathy is destroying the West. He seemed to appreciate my empathy when I was giving it to him, of course. But he's also recently called my banner on my YouTube channel. He said it was bad art, I think, if I recall correctly. So I just, you know, I'm not saying that like my heart's broken or nothing, but it seems as though, you know, my attempts to reach out have not really borne fruit. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover one of his videos here. How leftist empathy is destroying the West. And just give my honest take on it. And listen, Remnant, I know you watch these things, so if you happen to see this and you don't like what I have to say, there's not much I can do about it. We're very different people with different opinions. And I think mine are the correct ones. AI.
Toxic femininity. Now that's a really funny term in my opinion, because it makes me sound like I'm just some sort of butthurt right-winger who hates the term toxic masculinity.
Right-winner?
But the truth is, I deliberately picked it because it's a very accurate way to describe what's currently happening in the West. In fact, I hope by the end of the video, I've introduced to you a whole new perspective on how to view masculinity and femininity within our society. Let me explain. If you are a man, you were likely taught while you're growing up that you have to control your emotions, especially the negative ones such as anger and rage. Why? Well, as a young
Yeah, I guess.
man, you're filled up with tons of testosterone that can cause you to easily break the things around you that are valuable, or even hurt the people that are close to you.
Well, it's more like men are socialized such that they can't show any emotion, but the one emotion that they're I'm not saying they're allowed to always show it, right? But the one emotion they don't get called like a sissy for showing is anger, you know? Like, oh, if you act too happy or giddy about something, well, then you're acting like a girl. If you cry about something, then you're acting like a girl. So the only outlet left is anger and aggression. So at least, like, you might get in trouble, but at least you're not going to be called a girl. Because what worse is there to be called as a boy?
Why emotional control is one of the first things you're taught as a young man. You're taught the dangers of violence and how to control it. And I would personally classify these traits like violence, dominance, assertiveness, all as masculine traits in themselves that are not inherently good or bad, but they are entirely dependent on the context. Like
Dominance don't gotta be masculine. I'm just saying.
Getting angry and a family member? That's bad.
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Why are we using a
That's what
furry?
the feminists usually refer to as toxic masculinity. However, if we take that same action...
Wait, what?
...referred to as toxic... That's what, like getting angry and a family member? That's bad. Yeah, that's horrible. That's what the feminists usually refer to as toxic masculinity.
That's a huge oversimplification there. Toxic masculinity also negatively affects other men. And it's not always just like, it's not even necessarily always from a man. It can be from a woman saying, well, you got to man up. That's toxic masculinity. That's an example of toxic masculinity. And you can call it toxic femininity if you want. You might be right. But toxic femininity stems from toxic masculinity because the masculine people are historically the ones who reinforce this dichotomy. And so to the extent that there is toxic femininity, it always comes from toxic masculinity.
However, if we take that same action being forced and use it against a criminal, that's a good thing. In that instance, you could even refer to it as positive masculinity. It's beneficial to society as a whole, depending on the context.
Would he still call it positive masculinity if like a woman did it? I am just curious.
What about femininity? How do we categorize it? Women do have higher levels of agreeableness overall, which is linked to emotions such as empathy and sympathy. Emotions that are rarely referenced.
Again, I don't know what source he's getting this from, but the agreeableness of women is not something that's innate as much as it is like socially constructed. Like they're taught to be agreeable because they get punished otherwise.
In a negative way. We all know why it's important to control your negative emotions like sadness, anger, and rage. But when it comes to empathy, when was the last time you heard somebody say, you need to control your emotions, you need to cut down your empathy? Never.
Actually, I did get some people saying, well, right-wingers don't deserve empathy. And that's why I've changed the moniker to critical empathy, because I think that gets the point across better, that like this is about understanding our enemy, you know, and then trying to pull them out. Like first resort, try to pull them over, right? But that doesn't work a lot of the time, not even most of the time. In fact, it rarely works. So, you know, the next step to that from that is to defend yourself if need be. You know, like because the people whose minds we're trying to change are dangerous. So, you know, and that's where critical empathy comes in. Understanding your enemy will let you know better, like what their plans are, if they're going to attack you, how they're going to attack you, what rights they want to take away, you know, all these things, and help you make smarter decisions. Because at the end of the day, again, empathy is putting yourself into the mindset of another individual. That's how I look at it.
However, you don't hear anybody say
that's all that means.
You certainly don't hear your parents teaching that to young men or women. Yet the more you learn about this emotion and how it affects us, you quickly realize it's extremely important to control this emotion. I was watching this one video by a YouTuber named Amy Paladin. She made an interesting video talking about dark empaths. And I'm actually here to reference one of the interesting studies she mentions in the video, a study that was done on men and women concerning empathy.
Women also appear to be less able to restrict their empathy to appropriate targets, as illustrated in an experiment by Singer and colleagues in 2006. In this
empathic neural responses are modulated by the perceived fairness of others. Okay.
And colleagues in 2006. In this study, male and female participants played a prisoner's dilemma style game with two people they believed were other participants, but who were actually research confederates or actors. Players were asked to give points to their partners with the understanding that these points would be tripled. Their partners would then decide how many points to return. The points translated into real money paid out at the end of the experiment. Some Confederates played fairly, returning the same number of points they received. Others played unfairly, returning fewer points than they were given. Participants were also told that their partners might receive either a painful or non-painful electric shock, supposedly administered by the researchers.
This is very complex.
In reality,
but I'm following
no shocks were delivered. The Confederates were acting, but the participants believed the pain was real. While this was happening...
That's crazy that you would deliver a shock to somebody just because they stiffed you a couple bucks.
Participants' brain activity was measured using fMRI. When the unfair players received shocks, men showed reduced activation in the bilateral frontoinsula and the anterior cingulate cortex.
Yeah, because they're socialized to believe in, you know, like you're emasculated. That's emasculation, right? Not getting returned what you're owed. That's emasculation. They just emasculated you. Of course you can shock them without feeling any sympathy for them or empathy. Not me, of course. I don't believe in that bullshit. I think that's bullshit. I wouldn't shock somebody just because they stiffed me a few bucks. I'd just be like, okay, f you, man, and move on with my day.
Brain regions strongly associated
At least I'd like
with
to think I
empathy
would.
and the perception of others' pain compared to when fair players were shocked. In women, however, there was no significant reduction. In other words, men's empathetic neural response dropped when the person being harmed had behaved unfairly. Women's did not. These findings suggest
women aren't taught to value money as much as men. Like they value men who make money. That's one part of it, and then the other part of it is that they don't have the empathy programmed out of them.
That women continue to empathize even with individuals who act immorally, whereas men's
in fact, it's quite the opposite. They are socialized to understand that if you don't do that, you'll be punished.
Empathy appears to be more selective, primarily extending to those who have not earned punishment. Put simply, female empathy seems less conditional, while male empathy is more discerning.
And then she goes into amazingly autistic detail about how when you empathize with a person and you feel as if they're wronged or victimized, there's a part of you that seeks vengeance for that person. Even though the quote-unquote victims in many cases are literal violent criminals, which is why so many individuals who self-proclaim themselves as empathetic can be so violent towards innocent individuals who did nothing wrong.
Hold on.
There's a part of you that seeks vengeance for that
right.
person. Even though the quote-unquote victims in many cases are literal violent criminals, which is why so many individuals who self-proclaim themselves as empathetic can be so violent towards...
Which violent criminals are you referring to, man? I mean, is he aware that like which violent criminal? The enemy comes by yacht, not by small boat. Refugees welcome, racist not. I mean, again, okay, so this is relevant. Is he aware, right, that the undocumented immigrants here on average, commit less crime than like the average American citizens. The average of the American citizens. Like, is he aware of that? I'm just saying. So if you want to get rid of the violent people, like deport them, start with the U.S. citizens.
Proclaim themselves as empathetic can be so violent towards innocent individuals who did nothing wrong. While according to the left, they see themselves as protecting victims. And what it boils down to really at the end of the day is a matter of perspective and emotion. Let me go into more detail. Now, some people call this toxic empathy. I would say this is toxic femininity, though, because it comes from a very caring and nurturing place, a place that would benefit your children. Because even though they're extending empathy towards literal criminals, people who do not deserve it, this kind of love and empathy.
Okay, so what he's getting at is that, like, people who show empathy, like, if you're a man and you show empathy to people, you're like a sissy or something. It's like a feminine thing to show empathy, right?
Has a place in our society, which is towards your children. Your children will mess up. They do
Just your
need
children,
a source
nobody
of
else.
unconditional love in life. That comes from their mother. Because people, much less
Not their father, famously.
children, are not
Fathers do not unconditionally love their children. That's not a real thing.
perfect. This love is not toxic. It is entirely dependent on the context. However,
I'm sorry, he tries to sound so smart, and it's like the dumbest shit that he says.
this emotion cannot be allowed to control things in our justice system, period. I'm sorry, but the government should not become
Okay, if you really feel that way, you should be fervently against Donald Trump, because all of his decisions are based upon, is this going to make me look good? One. And two, is the person I'm doing this for, were they nice to me? Were they nice to me once? Because people who are nice to me get whatever they want from me. Donald Trump is the most emotional baby that we've ever had as a president, okay? And guess what? Notably, not a woman.
a mother that ends up loving their criminal children unconditionally. No. Instead, what we should do is lean into something much more cold and uncaring.
We get it, you silly goose. You only have empathy for evil. Are you talking to me or him? Oh no, you innocent fascist. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Something devoid of that unconditional love. It does not belong in many places in our society. And if we do not control this emotion, it will hijack us. Now, for the sake of argument, let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say that we're left-wing. What is a real criticism we could levy against this? Somebody on the left might make the claim that all of these are unsubstantiated assumptions. All I'm doing is taking this information and interpreting it through the lens of my own values.
It's complete pseudoscientific drivel. Like, you used one study to say that women are more empathetic, and then from there you're like, well, actually we're like feminizing society and we're being too empathetic to like criminals. Like, and that's why like toxic like you're trying to tie a lot of ideas together, to be honest with you. But what I'm getting is, one, empathy is feminine. Two, too much empathy is bad. And three, our society is giving too much, or I guess the left is giving too much empathy to, the feminist left is giving too much empathy to criminals, which I don't think is the case. I just think, in my view, right, no matter what crime you commit, you can be rehabilitated. You can be rehabilitated, and then the Mott and Bailey fallacy, straw man. Yeah, like, yeah, he's doing fallacies, of course. As a criminal, you can be rehabilitated and reintegrated into society. And I don't even think that that's like, it's not just a humanitarian thing. It's a consequentialist thing, right? Like, society is better off that way. That person can now be reintegrated and do work for us. People forget the most valuable asset we have on this planet is the human body, okay? It is the most amazing instrument, and we just sit here and pretend like it's not. Like, we can just throw humans away. Why would you do that? Why on earth would you do that? Just fix the problem and then reintegrate them. Okay, you want to talk about rationality and logic? There you go. That is no emotions involved at all. That's just the rational, logical thing to do. But if you want to get humanitarian about it, yes, they absolutely deserve that, okay? Everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody deserves to be able to contribute to society if they want to.
Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe we should give more mercy to these people who break the law. All I'm doing is just vilifying
Break the law how?
a perfectly good trait. I haven't even demonstrated that this emotion is truly being hijacked. So in the end,
Oh, I remember this case. Okay.
how do I objectively know
I don't remember anybody giving empathy to this murderer, by the way.
this is what's happening?
It was just conservatives saying that leftists were doing it.
That this
They were definitely
emotion
doing
is
it.
being hijacked, and that toxic femininity exists.
Found incapable of proceeding to trial in Irina Zarutska's case. Maybe he was insane. Being in an insane asylum is also not a great place to be, just so you know.
If you have any of those thoughts or objections,
The point is, he needs to be separated from society, and so long as that happens, we're good.
That's good, because for you, I do have irrefutable evidence that this is objectively what is happening.
They didn't just let the guy go.
That your emotions such as empathy can be hijacked and weaponized against the wrong people. None of this is simply a matter of perspective. Because what if the thing you were empathizing with wasn't even real?
Huh?
Creatures is a game that was made in 1996 for the
What?
computer.
Please,
And it
no,
was one of
what?
the first instances of a game utilizing AI neural networks for their characters that they called Norns. Norns didn't have pre-programmed behaviors. Instead, they relied on a punishment and reward system. If you wanted to encourage a behavior, you would tickle your creature, or to discourage it, you would slap them. From this, you could even breed special types of norms that had behaviors passed down to them by their parents. And this sparked their
This is Pavlovian conditioning. Got it.
own communities at the time. And given that you could also share your norms with a file, communities online started to form around this game. And they fell in love with these AI norms.
This is so stupid.
So much to the point that there were even adult men crying when their favorite norm died. This is how emotionally attached many
Actually, I cried when my chow got sent away in Chow Garden. My sister was evil.
people became to their norms, to something that again isn't real. These people were so dedicated that they created their own communities called
Where's he going with
HANN,
this?
also known as the House for
Yeah, of course we empathize with things that aren't real. Of course. We empathize with fictional characters. That's why we cry at movies. What's your point? Where are we going with this?
and neglected norns. And as a challenge, they would download that norn to rehabilitate them. And these people would describe themselves as extremely loving and empathetic. Does that remind you of anything? This is where things get interesting, because not everybody loved these little creatures known as Norns. No, some of them actively terrorized them. Some would even purposely breed and train self-destructive behaviors in these Norns. They would literally traumatize the AI to the point that it couldn't sleep or eat, and it would eventually die. And the Norn lovers would hate this, saying that they weren't allowed to use their website to download Norns. This was wrong. It was
That's crazy. Actually, I'm kind of invested now. This is kind of wild.
inhumane. And the Norns, as they would call themselves, end up creating their own community called
I don't know who's crazier, the people who torture the fictional rat-looking things, or the people who are like, you're not allowed to do that.
Tortured Norns, where they would actively share their Norns and talk about how they hate them so much. Now let me ask you, how do you think the group of people who called themselves very loving and empathetic reacted to this? Did they A, ignore them, or did they B, report this website to try and get it taken down?
Why would you report the website for what? For not allowing people to use it if they tortured their Norns? That's their right. That's their website. They can keep out whoever they want. Okay, they have a website where they care very deeply about these creatures, and they have neglected, badly behaved Norns or whatever that they want to adopt off. And part of that service is that you can't be a Norn torturer. I feel like this is like A plus B equals C type shit. Like, it makes perfect sense to me. I'm not saying that it's like they're all there for doing this. It seems a little silly, but at the same time, it seems, you know, like I understand it. I get the rules, and I don't think that it's a good... Why would you report this website? For what? For not letting people torture the gentrified Tamagotchis, as Queen Laura says?
And if you guessed C, sending a fucking to their house, you would be correct. That's what they did. The community
Wow.
that saw
Okay, actually, that's pretty crazy. But just because those people describe themselves as empathetic because they took good care of these things, honest, like, I don't know.
themselves as extremely loving, caring, and empathetic, sent
That
death
is
threats
wild.
to real people over them hurting fictional characters that couldn't feel any pain. Again, this
They are very empathetic. They're just, their empathy is kind of geared toward non-living beings.
is an objective example of people's emotions being hijacked to have
But what the key here is they're being selectively empathetic. They're not being empathetic to the people who are torturing these things and understanding, okay, well, they just see this as a game and not real, and therefore it would be inappropriate of me to send a pipe bomb to their house. So it's selective empathy. In fact, I would say it's not enough empathy. They need to be feeling empathy for those people as well.
sympathy and empathy for something that isn't even real, and as a result being directed at real life
Focus on what his first claim was. Well, his very first claim is leftist empathy is destroying the West. This is a giant gish gallop and red herring. He did kind of jump all over the place, didn't he?
Human beings. Politics
Whatever.
aside,
I'm just along
whether
for the
you're
ride at
left-wing
this
or
point.
right-wing, you cannot disagree with this. This is an objective fact. And politics have sympathy and empathy for something that isn't even real, and as a result, being directed at real-life human beings. Politics aside, whether you're left-wing or right-wing, you cannot disagree with this. This is an objective fact, and we have even more examples of this.
It's
This is
inappropriate
something that's
behavior,
plagued
yes.
authors for hundreds of years. I mean, look at Arthur Doyle. He originally killed off Sherlock Holmes at one point, but because he received so many angry letters and threats, he was forced to bring back Sherlock Holmes from the dead, and it happens all the time with authors, especially when they kill off fictional characters that are extremely loved by the fans.
Okay, but we're talking about having empathy for like real people. Not like digital monsters, not like Sherlock Holmes from the fictional story, right? We're talking about real people. We're talking about people with like flesh, blood, feelings, goals, aspirations, flaws. You know, like we're talking about real flesh and blood people here.
They end up falling in love with a fictional character and having empathy for them. So when they end up being wronged or killed, he becomes a victim to the evil author that killed them. It sounds pretty psychotic, but it's true. However, in most cases, again, there's nothing that different about these people from you or me. Sure, these are extreme fanatics, and they're a bit wacky, you could say, but I wouldn't classify them as having some sort of personality disorder. I genuinely think that this is largely fueled by a lack of emotional control.
We anthropomorphize. What's his point? His point is that he's comparing fictional creatures to real people, like people he considers criminals.
A lack of control over your empathy and sympathy.
Which is
They never
wild.
stop to control their emotions when they read this extremely emotional piece of writing, something that invokes a huge amount of sadness, anger within us. It reminds me of a movie called Misery. It was originally a book written by Stephen King, but it was about a famous author.
We're so away from the original point now. The original point was about toxic femininity.
Named Paul. Paul was an author of a successful series that was coming to an end, and when he was driving to the office to get his last book published, he crashed his car into the middle of nowhere. But luckily, he was rescued by one of his biggest fans, Annie. She even decided to take care of Paul while he was recovering from his injuries. And as a thanks to her, he let her read his unpublished book that he just finished writing. The problem though is, Paul killed off a main character that she loved in the book. And this caused her to have an extreme reaction, such a strong reaction that she kept him trapped inside of her house until he rewrote the book where the character didn't die off. He eventually escapes the house, but that character, the concept, that reaction she had, there's a
Is Martin Baileying? Yeah, I mean, of course.
lot about this character that is incredibly real, and we see this crossing over into politics. I think that is what's happening. And I think it's important to understand that this character, these fanatics, the people who fell in love with these AI creatures, they aren't that different from us. You can view them as irrational.
Okay, get to the point!
Twisted, but I don't believe they're genuinely that different from any of us.
Wrap it up!
Let me explain to you. This is the
Put a
most
bow on it.
important part of the video. Look at this homeless addict. He is on the side of the road. He has nothing.
This is very weird. Is this AI generated? It is, right?
Nothing in life, and he's even missing his teeth. Society looks at these people with disgust. What's wrong with you? How could you let yourself fall apart like this? But the truth is, do you think that these people consciously decided and knew that their lives would turn out this way? Do you think that there's anybody that wakes up in the morning and says,
"The West is simultaneously the strongest thing to ever grace the planet in terms of setting standards, but so fragile that it breaks to empathy"?
That is true. Thank you very much, Sakazinogi, for another 5 tier 1 gifted subs, as always. Appreciate you.
I want knew that their lives would turn out this way. Do you think that there's anybody that wakes up in the morning and says, I want to become a homeless addict who has no teeth and is sitting on the side of the road?
This is what I say. This is my line here. I agree.
Now sure, tons of homeless people voluntarily live out that lifestyle. They continue to choose their addiction over changing their life. But when they fall into that lifestyle, they're usually
Nobody chooses addiction, man. That's not a choice, okay? It's a disease. A disease they need help with.
Completely ignorant. The person in this image looked like this. They were just like you or me, and they were not that different from us. Yet it only takes 1 or 2 mistakes, and your life will turn out like this. When we're living a normal, happy, healthy life, we are incredibly quick to look at these people and think to ourselves, this person
What
could
is
never
his
be
point?
me. But listen to my warning real quick. If you are that person and you think that way, you are at most risk of becoming this type of person. The truth is, you are simply ignorant on what it takes to get down that path. How easy it is to fall in.
The people who are the most empathetic are the most likely to be homeless? Why? Wait, how did we get here? What is he talking about? Yeah, I don't know what game this is either. Is he gonna like wrap this back around?
Into it. It takes
What's
1 or
this
2
music?
simple mistakes to just ruin your life. Now look at these people on the left. They act irrationally, they look insane. What they're doing is incredibly evil, but they are not.
That was a very well-timed death, I will say. Was that on purpose?
People on the left to just ruin your life. Now look at these people on the left. They act irrationally, they look insane. What they're doing is incredibly evil, but they are not that different from you or I. In this case, we have established.
Okay, I see what he's doing. He's comparing homeless people to leftists now. He's calling us diseased. He's saying, oh, it's like being an addict on the street, being a leftist, you know, like they're just addicted to empathy. Like there's way too many plot threads here, brother. You gotta learn how to like summarize your points and put it all into a nice, neat narrative. Okay, this is too much.
If you just don't even control your emotions like empathy and sympathy, it is incredibly easy to fall down that exact same path. If things were just slightly different for either of you, the roles could easily be reversed. You could be the insane person who views themselves as incredibly loving, caring, and kind, while acting and committing violence against innocent people. You are not that different from them. Because if you...
Okay, committing violence against people who are themselves committing violence could be viewed as defense. I'm just saying. Like, at a certain point, it becomes defense. So if you really want to be empathetic about it, that's probably why those people do what they do, all right? Even the ones who do it fictionally. I'm not defending them, okay? Even the ones who do it for fictional characters, all right? This is what real empathy looks like, though. You really want to tackle, like, the people who are, the whatever they're called, the goblin people, like, who were super empathetic for those goblins and then, like, firebomb somebody's house, right? They thought they were protecting something. They thought they were doing a defensive action, more than likely, okay? They were trying to stop somebody from torturing other creatures, okay? The insane part is that those creatures weren't real, okay? You know who is real? Immigrants. Immigrants are real, okay? So when ICE agents get attacked, usually those people think that they're defending real immigrants. And sometimes they are. I'm just letting you know that.
don't understand this concept, you are the most vulnerable into falling into this trap. The same trap you are judging them so harshly for falling into. I want to end the video on a special note. I was talking to my father about this, and what he said really stuck with me.
My dad.
It really goes back to the old wise saying, there, but by the grace of God, I go. If I could choose anything, it would be that everybody
Why did this
wants
turn into like an emotional video? What happened?
away with that mentality
This turned into a draw my life bit.
after watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you all so much to the Patreon.
Yeah. Okay, man. Okay, well, I mean, he's probably going to watch this, so if and when he does, listen, I really am not trying to be mean these days, but, like, this was all over the place. It was nonsense. Like, you started off with toxic femininity and then moved over to, like, talking about how leftists... you too can fall into leftism. Like, it loosely connects. There's a through line, but we just got so far away from the first words that showed on the screen. This. You didn't wrap back around to the main point. That's just basic etiquette for video scripting, man. You're not good at this. And also use a ton of AI, and I don't respect that. So, yeah. If you're watching this, sorry, it was kind of a dog shit video. I don't agree with it. And I think that you make, I will say this, you make some interesting connections in your brain. You make some interesting brain connections. Hi, thanks so much for watching and making it to the end of the video. I just wanted to let you all know that I love and appreciate everybody in my community, whether you can support me financially or just by liking, commenting, and sharing my videos. It helps way more than you know. That being said, I do want to give a very special thanks to my tier 4 subs, which would be Space Timid and Hot Take Andy. And thanks so much to my monetization monetary subscribers from any of the tiered subs, or anybody who gives me money in any form, including going to my Patreon shop, donating money to me directly. It all helps way more than you know. If you do decide to help me financially, you can get some really cool perks like early access to content, exclusive access to censored videos, also some really cool badges next to your name. Even if you can't afford a monetary subscription, just watching, sharing, and commenting on my content helps way more than you know. Thanks again, and I will see you all in the next video.